Have you ever been on in your house, perhaps washing dishes or reading a book, when you distinctly heard a family member call your name from a room? You might put down what you are doing and walk toward the voice only to remember that you are the only one home. Most people brush this off as a trick of the mind, a hypnagogic hallucination. But there is an old rule in the deep wilderness that states if you hear a familiar voice calling you from the trees, you should never answer, because if you answer, you confirm that you can hear it. And as it knows you can hear that it knows where you are. Welcome back to Grim Reality Locks. Tonight, we are opening a file verve from an audio engineer who went missing in upstate New York. If you want to keep these locks open, leave a like and subscribe to Grim Remlets. Let me know in the comments which story kept you up tonight. Stay safe. Part 1. The Acoustic Anomaly. My name is Ellis, and I listen to things for a living. To be more specific, I am a supervising sound editor and Foley artist for feature films. My job is to take a scene that was full-on a noisy set and make it sound crisp, realistic, and tri-fi. I know exactly what a human bone sounds like when it snaps socially. It is a stalk of celery wrapped in a wet chamois cloth twisted near a microphone. I know that tie of is salving is actually archive plunging into a watermelon. I trade in illusion. I understand the physics of sound better than I understand most people. That is why I know without a shadow of a doubt that what happened in Blackwood Valley was physically impossible. I needed to finish the mix for Anthony Thrall before the December deadline, and my apartment in Brooklyn was simply on fire. The constant siren wail of emergency vehicles and the subsonic rumble for the subtly made precision mixing a nightmare. I needed absolute zero. I needed silence. I found a listing on a rental site for a property in the Blackwood Valley, heaven 4 hours north of the city. The photos showed a stunning piece of architecture. It was a converted barn, but barn is a misleading word. It was a structure of black steel and floor-to-ceiling glass sitting on 40 acres of private woodland. No neighbors, no roads within 3 miles, just trees, rocks, and silence. It was perfect, or so I thought. I arrived at the property around 4:30 p.m. on a Tuesday in late November. The sun was already dipping below the tree line, casting long, shadows across the gravel driveway. The air was biting cold, the kind that hurts your lungs when you inhale to deploy. I spent the first hour unlading my gear. I had brought my mobile rig, a pair of Genic monitors, a Hebe Mac Pro tower, and my pride collection of shot microphones. I set everything up on the large oak dining table that looks out over the backyard. The backyard was not really a yard. It was steep decline of overgrown brush that vanished the forest of pine and a. Because the back wall of the house was entirely glass, the forest felt like it was inside the room with me. During the day, it was breathtaking. But as I pressed in my interface and the sky turned a bright purple, the glass became a problem. When it is dark outside and bright inside, a glass wall turns into a mirror. I could see my reflection perfectly, but I could not see anything out there. I was sitting in a lit fish bowl, and the rest of the world was sitting in the dark watching. I started working around 6 p.m. The silence was heavy. It was so quiet I could hear the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen and the blood rushing in my ears. I worked for 3 hours straight, mixing a Zelig track where a woman whispers for help in a closet. Around 9 p.m. he needed a break. My ears were fighty. I grabbed a pack of cigarettes and stepped out onto the back deck. The air was dead still. No whine, no crickets. It is rare for a forest to be this quiet. Usually, there is something moving, gay deer stepping on a twig, an owl, the rustle of dry leaf. But this was a vacuum. I lit my cigarette, the flame of the lighter flaring bright and loud in the darkness. I took a drag and exhaled, watching the smoke riffle upward. He sneezed. It was a loud, sharp sound that tore through the silence. Achoo! I sniffed and rubbed my nose, waiting for the sound to dissipate. In a valley like this, you expect an echo. Sound waves trivially 1,100 feet per second. The tree line was about 300 feet away. I expected a quick slapback echo to return to me in about half a second. I waited. 1 second passed. 2 seconds. 3 seconds. 5 seconds later, I heard it. Acho! The sound came rolling back from the trees. I froze, the cigarette burning down between my fingers. That was impossible. 5 seconds. For sound to take 5 seconds to return. The reflecting surface would have to be over half a mile away, but the trees were right there. I could throw a rock and hit them. I frowned. my mind immediately racing through the physics. Was there a cliff face further back that I cannot see? Was the temperature inversion trapping the sound and bouncing around the valley before returning it? I decided to test it. I took a deep breath and shouted, hello. I tricked my watch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hello. The echo returned 6 seconds later. It was getting longer. The delay was increasing. That made no sense. Alice's landscape itself was moving away from me. The delay should be constant. A cold shiver, unrelated to the freezing temperature, crawled down my spine. I leaned over the railing, straining my eyes against the darkness. Is anyone there? I called out, my voice slightly trembling. I waited. I counted. 10 seconds passed. 15 seconds. Silent. I let out breath I did not know I was holding. Okay, I whispered to myself. Just a word. Acoustic anomaly. Atmospheric pressure. Don't be an idiot. I turned to go back inside, grabbing the handle of the sliding glass door. 20 seconds after I had yelled, the forced and swore, is I there. It was my voice, but it was not an echo. An echo decorates. It lost the high frequencies and the bass. It sounds distant and hollow. It sounded exactly like me. It sounded like a high-fidelity recording playback pro studio speaker standing right the edge of a fords, and there was something else. In the recording in the echo I heard a tone of mockery. When they had yelled, I sounded nervous. The voice coming back sounded amazed. I slammed the glass door shut and locked it. I stood there, staring at my own reflection in the window, my heart hammering against my ribs. I told myself I was tired. I told myself that the isolation was getting to me. I went back to my computer and put on my noise-canceling headphones, cranking the volume up to drown out the silence. But it could not shake the feeling that the fistball was being watched, and it could not shake the feeling that out there in the dark, something was practicing. Part 2. The high-fidelity recording. I tried to force myself back to work. I sat at the desk, staring at the timeline of the film I was supposed to be mixing. The director wanted the dialogue in the third reel to sound claustrophobic. Ironic. I was currently sitting in a glass box in the middle of Nowhor, feeling more trapped than I ever had in the city. Every time I moved my mouse and tapped the safe bar, I found myself pacing to listen. I was waiting for the echo. I waiting for the forest click a tumble back at me. By element P meme. I could not focus. The silence outside was a crucial. It felt heavy, like a physical weight pressing against the glass. As a sound engineer, I have a habit of needing to quantify things. If I hear a buzz in a recording, I need to know the frequency. If I hear a rattle, I need to find the loose screw. I could not let the echo go. I needed to know what it was. I needed to capture it. I opened my equipment case and pulled out my most sensitive microphone ear. There's a shotgun mic and pissed in a blim windshield. This piece of gear is designed to pick up a whisper from 50 feet away in a gale for swine. It is a predator's ear. I mounted it on a bum pole and carefully slide the glass door open just a crack, maybe 2 inches. I pointed the microphone darkly at the tree line where I had a voice. I ran the solar cable back to my interface and hit record on a fresh track. I sat there for 20 minutes monitoring the input level. The waveform on my screen was almost the flight line. Silence, absolute silence. The noise floor was hovering around net of 60 decibels, which is incredibly quiet. But every now and then, I saw a tiny spike, a little bullet of orange on the frequency spectrum. It was too rhythmic to be whined. It was too quiet to be an animal. I hit stop and dragged the playhead back to the beginning. I bought on my headphones, closed my eyes, and listened. At first, it was the hiss of the preems. And at the 2-minute mark, I heard it breathing. It was sweat, heavy breathing, but it was not coming from the woods. The proximity effect on the microphone sixed at the source was inches away from the capsule. Somebody or something was standing directly outside the glass door, breathing into the crack I had left open. My blood ran cold. I looked at the glass door. It was black. I could not see anything but my own tri-fi reflection storing back. I had been sitting there for 20 minutes, and something had been standing right on the earth side of the glass, watching me. I kept listening to the recording. The breathing continued for minute, steady and calm. The voice started. It was a whisper. A low, guttural whisper that sounded like dry leaves scraping together, but the voice was mine. It was unmistakably my own vocal timbre. Credit card ending in 4192, expiration date 08/1 security code 331. I wrapped the headphones off my head and threw them onto the desk. My heart was hammering against my ribs so hard it thought it would crack a bun. I scrambled backward, my chair screeching against the hardwood floor. That was my credit card number. I had not spoken those numbers out loud since I was driving up here. I had called to order a replacement card while I was on the highway, pulled 60 miles south of the valley. I was alone in the car. The windows were up. How did they? I forced myself to put the headphones back on. I had to hear the rest. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely click the mouse. I skipped forward in the timeline. The voice was getting faster now. It was reciting things, random things. Mom, I will be there by 6. The key is under the mat. Didn't you lock the back gate? I love you too. Bye. That was the conversation I had with my mother 3 hours ago. But it was wrong. It was spicing the worst tiger in a different order. It was remixing my sentences. The key is under the gate. Mom, lock the mat. I will be under the back. 6, 6, 6. It was practicing. It was learning the cadence of my speech. It was taking the raw data of my voice and trying to construct a personality. And then at the very end of the recording, right before it had stopped, the voice changed. It stopped whispering. It spoke at a normal volume, clear and conversational. Alias, open the door. It is cold out here. I stared at the waveform. The spike for that sentence was huge. It was loud. It was right next to the microphone. I looked up at the glass door again. The 2-inch crack was still there. And then I saw it. Condensation. On the outside of the glass, right eye level, a patch of fog was fading. Someone had just breathed on the glass. I lunged for the door and slammed it shut, locking the deadbolt. I backed away, grabbing a heavy metal microphone stand as a weapon. I stood in the center of the room, spinning in circles, checking every window. The house was a hexagon of glass. Here were no curtains. Here were no blinds. I was posed from every angle. I grabbed my phone to call 911. No signal. Searching for service. I ran to the kitchen to check the landline phone on the wall. That tone. The line had been cut. I was trapped in a glass cage with something that knew my name, knew my mother's voice, and sound exactly like me. And it wanted to come inside. Part 3. The glitch in the loop. The fear was different now. It was not the adrenaline of a jump scare. It was the slow, coordination of dread. At coup, I was behind, but I did not know the rules of the game. If it was a bear or a wolf, it could understand its motivation, hunger, territory. But this was mimicry. This was psychological warfare. A route on ammo. The weather turned. The temperature plummeted in the rain turned out freezing sleet. It lashed against the glass walls, sounding like handfuls of gravel being thrown at the house. The wind picked up, howling through the valley. The trees bent and swayed, the branches scraping against the metal roof like skeletal fingers. Then the power went out. It did not flicker. It just died. The hum of the refrigerator cut out. The lights on my interface finished. The monitor screens went black. The sudden darkness was absolute. In the city, there is always ambient light lamps, passing cars, the glow of the skyline. Here, we out the moon. The darkness was a physical substance. It filled my eyes, my nose, my mouth. I fumbled in my pocket for my phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam caught a thin, Whitcon through the blackness. I swung around the room. The glass walls were now shiny black mirrors reflecting the flashlight beam back at me. I felt like I was in a hall of mirrors. Every time I turned it, I saw a frantic, pale version of myself turning with me. I retreated to the center of the living room, away from the walls. I sat on the rug, my back against the heavy oak table, the microphone stand ripped in my hand. Then came the knocking. It started softly. Tap, tap, tap. It was coming from the front door. I held my breath. I pointed the flashlight at the door, but the beam wasn't strong enough to penetrate the glass clearly. Alice, my voice from outside. It sounded worried. Elias, are you in there? The power is out. I can't find my keys. Voice the match. Churn. Its sound is so real. If I had been sitting there, fully conscious of who I was, I would have sworn that I was outside and silent. Bin. The inflection, the slight pitch drop at the end of the sentence was perfect. I didn't and swore. I remembered The rule: do not answer. If you answer, you validate it. The tapping got louder. Bang, bang, bang. Come on, man. Open up. It's freezing out here. I think I hurt my leg. The voice was evolving. It was adding distress. It was adding a narrative. It was trying to trigger my empathy. I stayed silent, tears of terror sting my eyes. I bit my lip until I tasted copper. Hen, the voice shifted. It moved from the front door to the side sliding door in a matter of seconds of speed. That shouldn't be possible for a human in the dark, on slippery ground. Bang, bang, bang. Hey, is anyone in there? This time, the voice was angry. It was my work voice, the tone I used when a director was being difficult. I know you're in there. Can't see your light. Open the goddamn door. Pan. The impossible happened. A second voice chimed in from the other side of the house, near the kitchen window. He heard a whimper. Please, please let me in. Hess chasing me. It was me again. A couches. Try-fi version of me. The angry bullies at the side door yell back, shut up. It's not going to open it if you keep whining. The terrified voice screamed, help me, Elias. Help me. Has going to kill me. They were having a conversation. The thing outside was blowing chargers add-on, staging a scene to my bullet me. It was a performance. A gross cranial play designed to make me break. I cover my ears, squeezing my eyes shut. It's not real. It's not real. It's not real. He whispered to myself, it is real, Elias. The angry voice whispered right against the glass by my head. I screamed and scrambled forward, shining the light at the glass. Nothing, just the rain streaking down the paint, loud melting wax. The voice stopped it. The knocking stopped. The silence that followed was worse. It was the silence of a predator that has stopped playing with its food and is now ready to eat. I sat there in the dark, shivering, watching the vapor of my own breath in the flashlight beam. The house was freezing. The heat was off. I needed to get out. I couldn't stay in the glazed box. I was a sitting duck. My car was parked about 50 yards away down the gravel driveway. If I could make it to the car, I could lock the doors and driveway. I could drive until I hit the main road. But to get to the car, I had to go outside. I had to enter its territory. I checked my pocket for my car keys. They weren't here. Patted my jacket. Nothing. I checked my jeans. Nothing. Panic, cold and sharp, pierced my chest. I remembered where I had left them. They were on the kitchen counter, near the back door. I slowly stood up, keeping the light pointed at the floor to avoid creating reflections on the glass. I crept toward the kitchen. The floorboards creaked under my boots. Every sound felt like a gunshot. I reached the counter. I swept the light across the marble surface. The keys were gone. I froze. I kept in theater. I distinctly remembered the sound of them clanking, stolen when I came in from smoking. Looking for these. The voice came from inside the house. It came from the loft above the living room. I whipped the flashlight up. The beam cut through the darkness and hit the steel railing of the loft. There was nothing there. But then I heard the jingle, the distinct metallic jingle of my car keys being tossed in cart. Ching ching. You left the upstairs window open, Elias. The voice said. It wasn't whispering and more. It was speaking with a calm, flat authority. I've been inside for 10 minutes. I didn't ping. I didn't breathe. I turned and ran. I ran for the basement door. The house had a finished basement, a soundproof room I had planned to use as a vocal booth. It was the only room in the house with no windows. A solid concrete bunker. I threw the door open and practically fell down the stairs. The flashlight beam jerking wildly. I heard heavy footsteps thudding on the floorboards. It moved men on human footsteps. They sounded like wolves or hardbon striking the wood with immense force. I slammed the heavy soundproof door to roof at the bottom of the stairs and threw the latch. I call up states, is sliding to the floor, my lungs burning. I was safe. The door was solid oak, reinforced with steel. The walls were a true fit of concrete. Nothing could get in. I sat there in the dark, listening to the silence. The soundproofing was perfect. I can hear the wind. I can hear the rain. I can hear the footsteps. I was safe. I looked at my watch. 3:15 a.m. I just had to wait for the sun. I just had to wait for the light. I closed my eyes, trying to slow my heart rate. And then, from the far corner of the pitch black room, the darkest corner of the basement, I heard a sound. It was the sound of a throat clearing. I slowly shined my flashlight into the corner. Sitting in the acoustic foam chair, wearing my spare jacket, was a shape. It looked limey. It had my face. It had my hair, but the eyes were wrong. They were too wide. They didn't blink, and the mouth was smiling too wide, showing too many teeth. You really should have checked the basement first. It said with my voice. Part 4. The final mix. I didn't scream. I couldn't. My throat sit up. The muscles locking tight as F of FE, ready crushing my windpipe. The thing in the corner stood up. It didn't push off the armrest like a human would. It simply unfolded its length, stepping ill-placed with sickening cracks, rising vertically while sifting its way. It stepped into the circle of my flashlight beam. It was wearing my flannel shirt, the same one I had packed in my duffsters, but the shirt was tight on it, straining its choles that were too broad, too angular. Its face was a perfect mask of mine, but the skin looked plastic, smooth and poreless, like a wax figure left too close to a fire. You have a good voice, Elias, it said. The sound didn't come from its mouth. It seemed to vibrate from its chest, resonating through the floorboards. I went to keep it. I scrambled backward, my boots slipping on the polished concrete until my back hit the soundproof's door. I was trapped. The only exit was by me, locked from the inside. What are you? He whispered. The words scraped my throat. The thing tilted its head, a jerky bird-like motion. I am the echo, it said, smiling the two-eye smile again. I am the space between the trees. And now, I am you. It lunged. I dropped the flashlight. The beam spun across the floor, creating a strobe, a thick of shadows and light. I felt cold, hard fingers clam around my wrist. They didn't feel like skin. They felt like tree bark crow. Freezing and incredibly strong. I kicked out, my boot connecting with its knee. It felt like kicking a granite pillar. It didn't flinch. It dragged me toward the center of the room. I clawed at the floor, my fingernails tearing against the concrete, leaving streaks of blood. I tried to yell to make any sound that would alert someone, Ellen, even though I knew we were miles from civilization. Help! Someone help me! I screamed. The thing pinned me to the floor, its weight crushing the air from my lungs. It leaned down, its face inches from mine. Its breath smelled like wet earth and rotting meat. Help! Someone help me! It repeated back to me, but it wasn't mocking me. This time, it was recording. It was sampling. The tone was identical to my scream. It was perfecting the terrified version of Elias. Then, it placed a hand over my mouth. The hand was huge, completely covering the lower half of my face. I struggled, brushing my legs, but it was like fighting a statue. It leaned close to my ear. Thank you for the lesson. It whispered. Then everything went black. You might be wondering how this audio log exists if Alias never made it out of the basement. You might be wondering who hit the record button on this final entry. My name is Elias. I am back in Brooklyn now. The city is loud. The subway rumbles beneath my feet, and the sirens will troll the night. It is chaotic. It is messy, but it is full of voice. So many voices to learn. So many sounds to practice. I finished the mix for the film. The director loved it. He said the sound design was inhumanly precise. He said he had never heard fully work the sound as so visceral, so real. He asked me how I got this sound of the bones breaking to sound so wet. I told him it was a trade secret. I don't go back to the woods anymore. I prefer the crowd. I standing in the middle of Times Square, letting the cacophony of tourists and cameras wash over me. I listened to them. I listened to their accents, their inflections, the way their pitch rises when they're happy and drops when they're. I am getting better every day. Sometimes, when I look in the mirror, I see the plastic smoothness around the eyes. I see the teeth that look a little too wide, a little too sharp, but nobody else notices. People hear what they want to hear. They see what they expect to see. If you ever hear your young voice calling to you from a crowd or from the art room, or from the static of a phone call, do not answer. Do not go looking for the source, because I might be looking for you, and I am always looking for new material. This concludes the log of the Blackwood Valley incident. The price paid was obsolete. The original Elias is gone. Absorb it to the silence of the wilderness. What walked out of that last house is something else entirely a perfect copy, hiding in plain sight. Observing how many it is, all pervy of sounds to mimic. It is a reminder that the most dangerous thing in the forest is that the predator with claws and teeth. It is the predator that wants to become you. If you want to keep these locks open, leave a like and subscribe to Groom Remedy Locks. Let me know in the comments which story kept you uptight. Stay safe.